Okay, no one would expect this, but President Trump and New York City Mayor-elect Mamdani just met in the Oval Office at the White House. And the presentation they just gave to the media in the question and answer portion was surprising. It was a communication showdown. So in this video, we're going to break down the dynamics, the framing, the use of humor, and how what we expected was much different than what we got. I'm going to show you a lot of different clips. I'm going to pause often, so just stick with me. Before we start, let's think about what's been going on. So the past few months, both Trump and Mamdani have been going at each other's necks. I just did a reaction video to Mamdani's victory speech, and here are some of the things he said.
After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Did you see his victory speech?
It's literally never worked. Yeah, I thought it was a very angry speech. Certainly angry toward me, and I think he should be very nice to me. You know, I'm the one that sort of has to approve a lot of things coming to him. So he's off to a bad start.
At one point he says, turn the volume up. How do you respond to that? Does that affect anything you're going to do?
It's a very dangerous statement for him to make.
So with what we would perceive as tensions being high, let's see how this starts. But before we do that, could you quickly like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel? I have a new analysis every Monday and Thursday so that you can learn how to communicate in the world's biggest moments.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him.
Trump starts this off with a status hug. A status hug is when a dominant person gives off so much warmth and so much praise that ultimately it gives them control. First, he introduces Mamdani as a big success, and he ultimately narrates the success of his campaign. And in communication, typically the narrator is the one who holds the power. He's the one with the pen. So with all of this praise, it seems like, oh wow, that's really nice. But in high power settings, praise is an example of positional power. By saying Mamdani beat him out easily, it puts Trump as the judge. By saying, if Mamdani does really good, then I'll be even more happy, that puts him as the evaluator. It's these little framing tactics.
But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
For instance, you may have been surprised whenever Trump said, there's no difference in political parties, there's no difference in anything, when factually that isn't true, right? There is a lot of difference. But what that does is it sets the frame of this is apolitical, this is harmonious, and it removes the oxygen from this room full of reporters who are going to bring up all these attacks of like, didn't you just say that thing last week? Or didn't you say that thing a month ago? And this is something expert communicators do so well. They set the frame so that if anybody goes against it, that person's going to seem combative.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Mamdani starts with a lot of strategy. Rather than accepting the frame that Trump has set, he accepts hospitality, but he pivots the frame. He first says, I'm grateful, I'm glad I get to talk with the president, but he doesn't mimic the over-the-top praise that Trump uses because he wants to be perceived as independent from the president. He is a lower power figure in this power situation, but he doesn't want to seem like he can be co-opted by Trump. So he's going to say thank you to Trump, but he's not going to give Trump all of this praise back. or he's not going to echo the praises that Trump gave him, like, yeah, I did beat him easily, and yeah, I am going to save New York. And something that you see Mamdani do really well here is absorb and redirect. Immediately, he talks about affordability. So Mamdani isn't going to come into this conversation with the big personality. He's going to come into the conversation with the logic, the numbers, and the stories. He doesn't want to set the frame of, hey, we're best friends, and hey, we're going to enjoy working together this whole time. He wants to be gracious, leader-like, reduce friction, but he doesn't want to seem as if he's tied to the hip of Trump. Now, when question and answer starts, that's when you can really see the dynamics and all of the strategic moves that the both of them make. The reporters know that there's a lot more than they're putting on, so they begin to ask very pointed questions like this one.
Mr. Mamdani, it sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve your relationship?
The reporter asks, you referred to President Trump as a despot, accused him of a fascist agenda. Are you going to retract? Now, this is a trap question. There's 99 ways to answer this, and 98 of them are going to get you in hot water. If you retract, you look weak. If you double down, you look combative. If you evade or dodge the question, then it looks like you are avoiding something and scared to approach it. But Mamdani does something very strategic here.
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
Mamdani says in response, we are very clear about our positions and our views. The meeting focused on our shared purpose, lifting 8.5 million New Yorkers out of struggle. So this is very strategic by him. He doesn't repeat the charged word fascist. He doesn't retract what he says. Rather, he instantly pivots back to this focus of affordability, and he reframes it. So in doing this, he lowers the temperature in the room. Now, what we'll see later on, they're not going to let that go. But in the moment, it was a really good opportunity to reframe, and that's what he did.
I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
And this is one of the best things that Trump does in the meeting, because he immediately collapses the tension with humor. He also signals emotional superiority of like, hey, I've been called much worse things. Honestly, that doesn't even bug me at all. Unbothered. He does something very important here, and that's protecting Mamdani from having to answer directly. Mamdani would have redirected back to affordability somehow, but he says, hey, don't worry about it. And it signals confidence, and it again gives him this chance to reframe. Through levity, he establishes dominance. So a great example how two different tools, both Mamdani and Trump, are doing two different strategies to bring the energy down and make this seem like a much more harmonious event and a win for the both of them. Another really big way that the reporters try to trip both of them up is comments about ICE.
Mr. President,
please.
you threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, you know, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length.
This is classic Trump framing because he's shifting the topic from ICE into crime. Talking about ICE in this moment may be controversial, but talking about eliminating crime is not controversial. It's something everybody wants. So he reduces the tension again. Hey, this doesn't need to be a conflict. We're on the same page here. We both want to reduce crime. And as you notice, he says we, and he speaks for Mamdani. He wants it even more than I do, maybe.
We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and most recently we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very little to do with what that is.
And when Mamdani speaks about this, he speaks with a lot of precision, but he also reframes this. He says, New York City can coordinate with federal agencies for 170 serious crimes, so he's co-opting that crime frame. But he's also saying the concern is around enforcement on New Yorkers, and he gives example of a mother and her 2 children facing immigration enforcement. So what he's doing here by sharing that story is he's changing the frame away from crime and towards families. Trump frames ICE as removing murderers, while Mamdani frames ICE as traumatizing citizens and their families. So he avoids debating Trump directly because that would take a hit on his persona in this moment. He doesn't say you're wrong or I'm actually right here, but he does change the lens, which is strategic. And then you see Trump double down again, talking about ICE. He says,
What we did is we discussed crime more than ICE per se. We discussed crime, and he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. And I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue.
What we discussed more than ICE was crime. He doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime. We discussed this at great length. So he's changing it again. He's reasserting this frame of crime equals ICE or ICE equals crime. And you don't want crime, you actually want safety. So we need to take action and make decisions on this. So neither Mamdani or Trump are accepting one another's frame, but they're not openly disagreeing, which is good for the both of them. So they're tactically talking while tactically not talking.
The time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers. That came back to the same issue, cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. We heard them speak about cost of living. We focus on that same cost of living, and that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to. We focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform.
Mr. President, you say you love New York City. Mr. Mamdani, does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable.
And ending with one of the most impressive things, and that's Mamdani's affordability message and his discipline to the message. He keeps going back to it over and over again. He says, 8.5 million New Yorkers. He drops stats. He talks about cost of living. He talks about rent, groceries, utilities. He talks about how all of these people are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city. So to him, he knows that affordability is the safe zone. If he can go throughout this whole entire conversation and make affordability as the thing that he's remembered for, then it's a victory. Trump talks about his victories and talks about the things he's done and how he's done really well and how the last president's not done as well. And Trump talks about how Mamdani's done really well and how Mamdani's going to make New York City great. Mamdani doesn't do any of that. He talks about affordability. He talks about his values. A very intentional decision because ultimately he doesn't want to get in the hot water, but he also doesn't want to be perceived as someone who folded under pressure and who changed. So it's really impressive, the discipline of the message. Repetition, repetition, repetition. The more you repeat something, the more likely you're going to be remembered by that. And it's really good for you to be remembered by your core message. So despite all of the questions coming in, if you can pivot, if you can absorb, and if you can reframe back to your core message, that's an A+. Overall, I think this was a great conversation, and I think it was a great instance of seeing how people reframe in high-power situations and how they're incredibly attentive to detail to make sure they're not doubling down on something they don't want to be associated with, while also changing the direction and going back to their core message and their core strategy. I did an analysis over Tucker Carlson and Putin. You can watch that video next. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you like moments like this and you like analysis and you want to learn how people communicate in the biggest moments in the world. As always, I'll see you next time.